Kesubos Daf Ayin Beis contains two Mishnayos, three sugyas. We're all talking about the relationship between a husband and his wife. The first sugya, up until the first Mishnah, is discussing a neder that the husband makes, which entitles his wife to a divorce. The second Mishnah will introduce the topic of behaviors that she could do, which entitles her to lose her ksuba. And the third Mishnah will talk about conditions that they can make on the marriage and when they can be expected to be kept and when they cannot be expected to be kept, and when they mess up the marriage if they are not fulfilled. So let's begin. We're discussing a vow that a husband made on his wife and when it's a problem. So the first case we are discussing is where he made a vow that she's not allowed to go to a Beis Hamishta or Beis Evel. She's not allowed to go to a funeral or to a wedding on the pain of losing her rights of Tashmish. So the Gemara says, what's the problem of not going to a Beis Evel? I understand not go to a Beis Hamishta is a little hard. It's like he's locking her in the house, but you can't go to a house of mourning. What's the big deal? Why does she need to go? Let her just not go. My answer is she has to go because otherwise when she dies, people aren't going to want to take care of her. You have two versions. Either no one's going to mourn her or no one's going to be involved in the burial. So Gemara brings a brisa to show this. Rabbi Meir says, what is the meaning of the pasuk in Koheles, which says, better to go to a house of mourning than to a house of joy and party. Bashar will save Kol Adam. It's the end of all people. And the living should pay attention to this. What does that mean? The living should pay attention to this. So what he means is that a living person should pay attention to the fact that he better invest in other people in order that they should take care of him. If he takes care of others when they die, then others will take care of him when he dies. Somebody who says hispadim, somebody who mourns, who says eulogies, people will eulogize him. Somebody who buries others, they will bury him. Somebody who wails for others, they will wail for him. Somebody who accompanies others, Levaya, attends a funeral, they will attend his funeral, and somebody who carries others, they will carry him. Okay, next the Mishnah had said that if he says that she's not to go to a certain place because of Dovar Achar, because of something else, then he's allowed to make the rule and it does not entitle her to a divorce. So what is this something else? The Gemara says, this is the name of Rav, because there are people there that are inappropriate, they engage in inappropriate behavior, and therefore doesn't want her to go there, is afraid for her. So Gemara says it has to be that we know that there are such people there. Just because he claims that there are such people there doesn't give him the right to say that. We have to have outside confirmation of that. Okay, now next we said that if he says that he is forbidding Tashmish on the pain of her saying something, she has to say something. So the Gemara says that it's grounds for, the Mishnah says that's grounds for divorce. The Gemara asks, what's the problem? Let her just not say, or let her say what he wants her to say. He says he wants her to say over something to someone else, so let her say it. What's the big deal? The Gemara says, no, we're talking about when it's degrading to somebody, and therefore she doesn't want to say it, she doesn't have to say it. And therefore it's grounds for divorce. The next thing was he told her she has to fill up and pour out into the garbage. What does that mean? So Gemara brings two explanations. One is of Yehuda named Shmuel, who says it means that she should pour out the zera. She should make sure she doesn't become pregnant by doing certain maneuvers to make the zera fall out. The second shot is that she should literally fill up 10 pitchers of water and pour them out into the garbage, just like it means. So Gemara says, okay, according to Shmuel, I understand why she doesn't want to do that. She wants to have a child, and it's not a fair request for him to ask. And therefore she has grounds for divorce and to get her ksuba. But when the second child is to pour jugs of water into the garbage, what's the big deal? So the Gemara says because it's insane. It's insanity. It's not what a normal person will do. You can't force her to do insane things. So more further, if Kahana says somebody who, another example of this is somebody who makes his neder on his wife that she's not allowed to borrow anything, not allowed to borrow a sieve, a sifter, a grinder, an oven. All these cases, he has to divorce her. It's grounds for divorce. He has to give her a ksuba because it makes her unable to live with her neighbors. She has to be able to get along with the neighborhood, and if she's not going to be involved like that, that's going to be bad news. Same thing is if he makes her swear that she's not going. So we have a brisa that spells this out. If he makes a shvua against her, makes a neder against her that she's not going to borrow or to lend a sieve, a sifter, a grinder or an oven, he has to divorce and give her ksuba because it makes a bad name for her in the neighborhood. Now, if she makes a neder that she's not going to borrow or lend a sieve, a sifter, a grinder, or an oven, or that she's not going to weave nice garments for his children, in all these cases, it's a problem, and here it's her fault, so she has to get divorced without a ksuba. And the same reason again is because she makes a bad name for him and themselves and the whole family in the neighborhood. And now we get the next Mishnah, which discusses the behaviors and actions which makes a woman lose her ksuba. So the Gemara says as follows: there's two types of religious practices that a woman needs to follow. Something called das Moshe; those are the mitzvahs, actual halachos. And then there's something called das Yehudis, which is the rules that the women have accepted upon themselves, and that can vary from community to community. But violating either of these is grounds for losing one's ksuba, whether the basic halachos, which are das Moshe, or that of the general practice of women in Klal Yisrael, which are das Yehuda. Says Gemara, what is an example of das Moshe? If she feeds him food which is not meiser, meaning non-kosher food, or she's meshamishim as a nida, or she doesn't take off challah, or she makes a neder and she doesn't keep it. What is an example of das Yehudis? She goes out on the street with her hair uncovered, or she spins thread in the marketplace, or she speaks with random people. Now, the Gemara will explain what's the problem with all of these. Abba Shaul says if she curses his children in front of him, is also an example of violating das Yehudis. His children here is spelled as Yol Dov, which really means his father. The Gemara will explain what it means exactly. Now, Rabbi Tarfon says it also includes someone who's very loud. The Gemara will explain that means B'shas Tashmish. And the Gemara says loud meaning that she talks at her house and the neighbors can hear that. Okay, now the Gemara starts explaining the Mishnah step by step. The Gemara says she feeds him truma. He's meshamisher as a nida, and she doesn't take off challah. Says Gemara on all of these, how does he know? How does he find out about it? If he knows about it, so then let him not eat it. Let him not be meshamisher. And if he doesn't know, so then how does it come about that he finds out? So the Gemara says each one has a way of finding out. That it's Einay Melusar because she told him that somebody else took Meiser for it, and he goes and he asks that guy, and he says that it's not true. Meshamesh Nida, how does he know she's a Nida? So the Gemara there, the kasha is that a woman is trusted to count her own Nida days, so if he doesn't have independent knowledge, he should trust her. So Gemara says there's two ways to know. Number one is if she says that a certain chacham was metaher mara for her, and he goes to the chacham and it comes out that it was false. And number two is if the neighbors know that she was a nida because she was wearing her special nida clothing that people had in those days, and that's enough to prove that she's a nida. He didn't know about it, but later he found out about it. As far as challah, so there it has to be again that she said that somebody separated challah from the dough for her, and it's found out that that person denies it, and it's not true. All right, next we said that if she makes vows and she doesn't keep them, so Gemara quotes some information about not keeping vows. Gemara says by the sin of not keeping vows, one's children will die, like it says in the pasuk in Koheles, Al titin es picha lachti es b'sarecha. Don't allow your mouth to make sins out of your flesh. Will destroy your handiwork. So the beginning talks about violating your own mouth, means violating your nedarim. At the end it says it will destroy your handiwork. So what's your handiwork? Somebody says handiwork refers to your children. Rav Nachman gives another source. It says, Lashav, he kasi as benechem and musalo lakachu achol charbechem neviechem ka'aye mashchis. So, Lashav means because of falsehood, because you said something false, you said you're going to do something. Because of that, he kasi as benechem. I hit your sons. The Gemara brings a brayser. Rabbi Meir says anybody who knows that his wife makes a neder and doesn't keep it, he should go ahead and make more nedarim on her. So Gemara says, what does that help? Gemara says, obviously not. Gemara says, it means he should go and he should start up with her so that if she makes a neder, she'll do it in front of him. But the Gemara says, the Chachamim said to him, that's not going to help. You can't possibly keep an eye on her all the time. Just like you can't live in a basket with a snake because you can't watch him all the time. You can't live in a house like that with a wife because you can't watch him all the time. So it's grounds for, you can't watch her all the time. So it's grounds for divorce. Similar brisa, Rabbi Yehuda says somebody who knows that his wife doesn't take challah, he should take challah after her. He should re-challah everything. It's not grounds for divorce. He should just re-challah everything. So Gemara says that. So the brisa continues that they said to him also that you can't live in a basket with a snake. So you have two different things here. Whereas a machok is whether he could live with it and just make sure not to be over, or he can't live with it, and therefore it's grounds for divorce. One is if she makes nedarim, and another is if she doesn't take challah. So Gemara says it's far more likely to be a problem if she doesn't take challah, because that happens all the time. Women bake bread all the time. So the one who says that you can live with her, you can figure out the situation where she doesn't keep nedarim, could be you won't say that about it taking challah, because challah is a much bigger problem. The one who says about challah would certainly say it about nedarim. The one who says he could stay with her by challah would certainly say he could stay with her by nedarim. And now the Gemara goes on to discuss the dasi hudis. So the first example was that if she walks out in the street with her hair uncovered, someone asks her right away, covering the hair is a mitzvah deraisa. You learn that from the sota. Over there it says that her hair is exposed. That proves that the Gemara quotes a brisa. It says that proves that there is a mitzvah deraisa that their hair had to be covered. It says the paras rosh isha obviously was covered up until that point. So the Gemara answers deraisa is enough to cover it with a basket, which doesn't really cover everything so well, but it serves as a covering of some sort. The dasi hudis is that she has to actually cover it above the basket, above the braid. So that's not enough. Okay, now the Gemara quotes Rav Asinim of Rav Yochanan, who says that the braid, the basket, does not have a problem of hair covering, and Rabbi Zera thought about it, and he said, what do you mean that the basket, the braid, is not a violation of priyas rosh, of hair being exposed? Where are you referring to? If it's in the street, we just said that it's a violation of the dasi hudis. If it's in the house or in the yard, so everybody walks around exposed like that. You're not going to have a single Jewish girl, which he calls a daughter of Avram Avinu, that's going to be able to stay married to her husband, because they're all violating that. So the Gemara says, no, it's not referring to that. It's referring to between chutzers through the mavli, which is semi-private, is not such a public area. Over there's no isser. In the house, for sure, there's no isser, like you said. But in the street, in the yard, leaving from one chutzah to another, you may think there is, and there's a religion, there is not. Okay, the Gemara moves on. Next, we said if she's spinning thread in the shuk, in the marketplace, someone says, what's wrong with that? So the Gemara brings two explanations. One is that she has to expose her arms when she does that, which is a violation of the dasi hudis. And Rav Chizda said in the name of Avimi that she spins and she allows the thread to hang down to the lower regions of her body in order to attract people's attention to that area. Next, the Mishnah said she speaks with a lot of people. So what is that? What's wrong with speaking to people? Rav Yehuda says name was Shmuel. It means that she flirts with young men. The other one brings a story which brings these two problems together. So the Gemara says that Rabbi Bar Chana said, I was once walking behind Rav Ukva, and we saw an Arab lady that was sitting and spinning with a spindle in the marketplace, and she was allowing the thread to hang down to the lower regions of her body to call attention to it. She wanted to start up with me, so as soon as she saw me, she broke off the thread so that the spindle rolled away, and she said to me, young man, give me my spindle. And Rav Ukva said something about her. He said, this is an example of something. So what did he say? So Ravina says he called her a tava pashuk. This is a fulfillment of the Mishnah's statement of a woman who spins thread in the marketplace. That's what she was violating. She was allowing the thread to hang down. And the Rabbanan say he called her a midaberes and kol adam, because she was flirting. This is what the Mishnah means when it says that it talks with all the people. She was trying to flirt with him. Okay, next we saw in the Mishnah that Abishal said even somebody who curses someone's father or sons. So Gemara says it's referring to someone who curses if she curses her husband's father in front of her husband, or in front of her husband's sons, meaning in front of the person she's cursing in front of his grandsons. Gemara says, how do you know that that's true? Where's the simon to remember that? It says Ephraim Menashe Reuven v'Shimon Yiyu Li. Ephraim Menashe count as Reuven and Shimon, meaning that the older generation counts as the younger generation. So it's the same if you curse the father in front of his son or in front of his grandson. So what's an example of a curse? And where it says, for example, if she says, let grandpa be eaten by a lion, and she says that in front of his grandchildren. Next on the list was someone who's very loud. Someone says, what does loud mean? So Rav Yehuda's name is Shmuel. She makes a lot of noise about the tashmish. She's talking about tashmish in a loud voice so that the neighbors could hear. It's obviously embarrassing. And there's a brisa that says it's talking about where she's mishamesh and it's painful for her, and therefore she cries out, and it can be heard all the way to the next chaser. So the Gemara says, so that sounds like a mum. If she can't do tashmish properly, that's a mum. So you should list it in the Mishnah of all of mumin. So therefore, this pshat is not so good. We have to go with her old pshat. Now we begin the next Mishnah, which discusses conditions that the husband makes on the marriage when they are mekach tois, and therefore the kedushin doesn't count as at all, when they're a violation of the condition, and when they do count, but it's grounds for divorce. So the first one is if a man is mekadosh a woman and he makes an explicit condition and she can't have any nedarim on her, and it turns out that she has, so that's a violation of the condition, and therefore the marriage is void. He doesn't have to divorce her. She's gone. The marriage never began. If he doesn't say anything and then it's found that she has nedarim on her, so there it's not a violation of any condition. The marriage is chal, but it is grounds for divorce. He has a right to say, I don't want to be married to a woman with nedarim, and therefore he's going to send her away without a ksuba. Now, the Mishnah talks about mumin. So if she has a mum, which is a blemish on her, so if you made an explicit condition she can't have a mum, and there's a mum found, again, she's not mekadesh, as the condition is void. If, however, he didn't see anything, you find a mum, so that's grounds for divorce. He could divorce her without giving her ksuba, but he does have to divorce her. It's not like there's no marriage at all. Now, what counts as a mum? Anything which passes a kain from the gavayda counts as a mum in a woman. Now the Gemara points out the same exact Mishnah appears in Maseches Kesubos. So why is it listed twice? The Gemara says because it has a mix of Hilchas Kedushin and a mix of Hilchas Kesuba. So it's listed here because of the halachas of Kesuba. It's listed there because of the halachas of Kedushin, and the entire Mishnah is listed together in both places because they go together. Now, the Gemara quotes Rav Yechanan and Rav Shimon ben Yotzadok. What type of nedarim are we referring to? So it has to be a neder that she's not going to eat meat, she's not going to drink wine, or she's not going to wear pretty colored clothing. It has to be something which is a serious deprivation of something that affects him. So Gemara quotes a brisa that says that what type of nedarim are you referring to? Something which has inui nefer, something which is a deprivation. She's not going to eat meat, she's not going to drink wine, she's not going to wear colored clothing. Now Rav Papa said, hold on a second, which part of the Mishnah are you talking about? You're talking about the case where he explicitly said no nedarim, so it doesn't matter what the neder is. He said no nedarim. Even if it's some other little minor neder, no nedarim is no nedarim. And if you're talking about the place where he did not say no nedarim, okay, that must be what we are referring to. Rav Ashi says we could even be referring to the beginning where he said no nedarim. No nedarim only counts as something that a person would really be makbid on. In a case where it's a neder that a person is not makbid on, he cannot have a kaped on that, and therefore it's not an issue.